This Wednesday, kick off the new series of Beyond the Vibe. I'm joined by Graham Bonnet, best known for his time in Rainbow.
But they were looking for a singer. Ronnie Deal had left the band, and they were auditioning singers. And I was told by one of my friends, Mickey Moody, who's a guitar player in England. He played with Whitesnake. And he said, yeah, they're looking for a singer, Graham. Don't be surprised if somebody calls you up. And actually, I got a call from Roger Glover, who was working with Rainbow while they were looking for a new singer. And he said, Mickey gave him my number, my telephone number in London. And he said to me, would you like to come over and audition for the band, Rainbow? And I said, I don't know what's Rainbow? What is it? You know, I had no idea. So I had to go out and buy some Rainbow albums to see what it was all about.
Working with Steve Vai, I mean, was there, you know, obviously everybody has a process. Was he dramatically different?
Yeah, I mean, he was so different to everybody, you know, because he come from, you know, Frank Zappa's band, and he had a different idea about song. And when we started to write songs for the album that we did together, he and me and the rest of the band, he thought pretty much like I do. You know, didn't want to copy any other band, you know, going the formula. It was very much, you know, I always say the same thing. Instead of going straight ahead in the song, you take a left turn or a right turn or go somewhere down the middle, you know, and something different would happen in each song. And I was like, oh, yeah, I can go to a different melody here. You're actually changing key here. And you're going to somewhere that doesn't lead into a fucking guitar solo.
So I'm here with Graham Bonnet, live from the kitchen. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, you're welcome.
A thing I like to do, you know, I like to kind of start off by having a look at those early years, those beginnings of an artist's kind of journey. So how did this whole thing begin for you? You know, was there a moment for you growing up where you thought, you know, this is what I want to do, I want to be a singer? Did you have a moment?
Yeah, I mean, basically, when my cousin came over from Australia, he was working with some guys called the Bee Gees in Australia when he was about 13 years old, and he used to send me these recordings they did on the Leiden label in Australia, and he said, "These guys are my friends. I'm playing with them," and he said, "I think they're going to be big one day, but they're going to move to England eventually from Australia," and that's what happened. They came to England. And my cousin stayed in Australia. Then later on, he came over to England because he wanted to get a career going too. And we were playing in a club in London called the Revolution Club. And one night, we were playing away there and we finished the gig. And this guy came out of the audience and came up to Trevor and said, I'm sure that Barry, Robin and Morris would like to talk to you. And he was the Bee Gees ex-manager from Australia. He was over visiting London. And so Trevor got Barry Gibb's number. And from there on, it was like, over to see Barry. And Barry said to Trevor, we'd like to start recording with you again, you know, playing guitar and singing, whatever. And he said, well, my cousin's a singer too. And so I went over a couple of days later and met up with the Bee Gees, and that's where it kind of all started recording-wise in 1968. And we sat around with our guitars and playing and singing Beach Boys tunes and Beatles and R&B stuff, you know, Stevie Wonder and whatever, all kinds of different stuff, all in harmony. It was amazing. And that's really where the beginning of my so-called recording career started, you know, and we did a song called Only One Woman in 1968, and it did very well, but it went into the charts and Barry Gibb wrote it for us, you know, so it was amazing. It was surprising as well. I thought, well, we're in the chart, what is this, you know? So that's where it began, kind of. But of course, my singing as such, but I've always sang since I was like, you know, 12 years old or whatever, kind of in front of an audience. I used to go to the working men's club and things like that, when I was a little kid, sing, oh, come on, Graham, sing us a tune. So
Mm.
I've been singing since I was like 7, really, basically. But the actual career such started with the Bee Gees' Help in 1968.
Mm. I think, growing up, everybody has that kind of that first band for them that's almost like their band, the one that they
Yeah.
think, oh, this is what I'd love a bit of that. Did you have kind of one group in particular that you gravitated towards
Oh, are you
or an
kidding me?
artist?
It was, of course, the Beatles.
Mm.
That's what I grew up with. I remember going around the playground when I was still at school singing Please Please Me, and getting the sheet music and, singing it in my bedroom with my guitar, and my mum and dad saying, oh, you sing that really great. You sing that better than they do. So, yeah, I mean, the Beatles, obviously, and, later on, the Beatles, how they progressed, from doing Twist and Shout to, Strawberry Fields Forever and songs like that. I mean, they were my heroes and still are, and
Mm.
I later actually was on the Ringo Starr label. It was called Ringo Records in London. I got signed up by Ringo, and I did an album, which was incredible. That I should actually have a sort of a long distance relationship with the whole Beatles, and it was amazing. So I
Mm.
did this album, and it did really well overseas, but not in jolly old England. It was never really uh, taken to heart there for some reason. And it was a bit disappointing because I had some good songs on there and worked with some great musicians on this album. This was
Mm.
of Ringo's label, which didn't last for very long. But, recorded at John Lennon's house, where he used to
Wow.
live. He sold it to Ringo, blah, 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 blah. But, those guys were just, I think everybody is, were influenced by them in the 60s, obviously.
Mm.
People were suddenly going around with a Liverpool accent, even though they're even though they're from London. Yeah, hey, old pal, you doing? You all right? And oh, fucking great. All that was going. So everybody pretended to be Liverpudlian. And as you know,
Mm.
like the Beatles invaded wonderful downtown America, along with other people like Hermits and Peter and Gordon and etc. etc. Freddie and the Dreamers. Was all those kind of bands were happening over here.
Mhm.
But my cousin and I's record was never released, and it was really disappointing because I think we could have done very well with our first song. The only one woman song. It was
Mm.
something that we play even now. Yeah, I do it to this very day. And people say, "What's that song you sing?" When we play it here, what's that song? That thing that's in 3/4, it's like R&B kind of a thing.
Mm.
And then I have to tell the whole story, to people who don't know in the States. It's hard to get arrested here sometimes. So we often play now these days in Europe and England, obviously. So I'm going around the houses a bit here. I'm just a bit
No,
kerfuffled
no.
this morning. Yeah, it's I'm still cutting up the soup stuff. Yeah. So you know, um, yeah. Where were we? What were we saying?
We were saying about the influences, and you were saying about the
Yeah,
Beatles, and
yeah.
I mean, you spoke about that song there. I mean, have you ever been tempted to kind of go back and, since it was kind of unreleased, have you ever thought, what, I'd like to kind of put that out?
Well, what happened was I had my own band here called Alcatraz years ago,
Mm.
and we actually did a recording of it on one of our albums. In fact, the
Mm.
last album I did with the band before I decided I'd had enough of that, and the band kind of split up. And because who was playing with us then? I think Yngwie Malmsteen was our guitar player, I think, at that time.
Mm.
And it was just, Yngwie got his own career going, and the band just split apart because I knew we needed him because he was amazing. But it's been over the years. I still went out with the other guys as Alcatraz, and we did record Only One Woman one more time, and it
Mm.
came out pretty well actually. I didn't want to do it particularly because I thought the original is still the best. You can never improve on it, I don't think, but it wasn't bad. It came out pretty good. So that's on our third album, which is called, oh shit, what was it called? Dangerous Games. Dangerous Games, that's what it was called. That was the album, the last album I did with Alcatraz. And it, it, well, it was a good recording. I was surprised at how well it sounded because I thought, well, I'm not going to be able to put the same heart into the song as I did when I was 19 years old or whatever, you know. But it turned out well. So I mean, we haven't recorded it again, but you know, as I said, we sometimes do it live because people kind of like it because it's what it is. It's a ballad, and it's pretty good. Sorry, I'm jumping off current. What?
You know, of course, you would go on and join Rainbow. I mean, at that period of time, you know, it was a bit of a, I think fair to say, a little bit of a genre change to you. Of course, you know, you were doing kind of more R&B stuff, and then you know, Richie Blackmore comes about. I mean, how did that kind of happen? Because, you know, from the outside looking in, it doesn't look like an obvious kind of call.
Well, what happened was they were looking for a singer. Ronnie Dio had left the band, and they were auditioning singers. And I was told by one of my friends, Mickey Moody, who's a guitar player in England. He played with Whitesnake, and he said, "Yeah, they're looking for a singer, Graham. Don't be surprised if somebody calls you up." And actually, I got a call from Roger Glover, who was working with Rainbow while they were looking for a new singer, and he said, Mickey gave him my number, my telephone number in London, and he said to me, "Would you like to come over and audition for the band Rainbow?" And I said, "I don't know what's Rainbow. What is it? You know, I had no idea." So I had to go out and buy some Rainbow albums to see what it was all about. And I said to my manager, "I don't think I'm the right guy for this because it's kind of like completely different to the stuff I'm doing right now as a solo singer, you know." And he said, "Well, learn the song they've asked you to learn and go over and do it. You know, there's no harm in going and auditioning." So basically, I learned a song called "Mistreated," and I went over there, and we went to this chateau in the middle of France and on the border of Switzerland and France or something, and that was my audition piece. So I went into where the band was, you know, all set up and everything, Rainbow, and there were these Marshall amps and the fucking huge drum kit and everything, and I was overwhelmed, like, oh fuck, you know, I've got to sing this well, you know. No, I didn't really know the song that well, so I had a piece of paper with all the words on it, and so I thought, well, what I'll do, I won't stand on the microphone in case I cock it up. So I stood well away from the microphone, about 6 feet away or something, and I just sang it as they played, and they were all looking at me and going, "What's he doing? You know, why is he standing over there?" And we did the whole song, and somebody said, "We can hear you," over all the crashing and banging, you know. And I said, "Oh, was it right?" I said, yeah. "Should we do it again?" Okay, we did it again. And again, not on microphone. And then there was kind of like, they're all sort of snickering. I'm, what the fuck? And how come we can hear him over the Marshalls and the Cozy playing drums, bashing like crazy? You know, I was like, you know, I was just always just funny. And I thought, well, that's it. I've done my audition. Then Don said to me, Don Airy, keyboard player, said, "Graham, would you mind doing it on microphone this time? Try that." And that's, again, the third time. So third time I say on microphone. And then there were people in the other room that day, like the girlfriends and roadies and whatever. And they all suddenly came out when they heard me sing with the band, so to speak. And they were all smiling away. And suddenly I was given the job to be the singer of Rainbow, which I didn't think was right somehow, you know. So I went back to London after doing this, and well, Roger and they all just said, "The job's yours if you want to do this." And I said, "Can I think about it?" So I went back to London and I said to my manager, "I don't think I'm right for this band because I don't sing like the old singer at all. You know, I've got my own thing. You know, I'm not going to start singing with a different voice." but they wanted the voice that was on the song called Only One Woman,
Mm.
which that was actually the beginning of it. The song that I recorded with Trevor, the guys Rainbow were playing the game called, Spot the Tune, and Cozy had a cassette player, and he's playing all these tunes from the 60s. And my cousin and I's song came up, Only One Woman, and Richie said, "Where is this guy now?" And Roger Glover at the time was working with Mickey Moody with White Snake, and he said, "Well, I can get in touch with him because I'm working with Mickey, who's in the same management company as Graham is." So that's kind of, I'm started at the wrong end of the story, really, but that's how the thing came about, was because of that song that Barry Gibb wrote. That was one of Richie's favorite songs. And the band liked that song. They just wondered where I was. And so I came over and shouted it at them, the the Mistreated song, because I was very unsure about it, But anyway, I said to my manager, I don't think I belong in this band because I'm not like the other singer. That's not the way I sing. But he said, but they want you as you are, even with my short hair and everything, which was unusual.
I was literally about to say, I mean, I'm sure you've heard it before, but of course, you have the more unconventional, for a rock singer, with the hair and the sometimes the suits and the shirts and all that.
Yeah.
Was this an intentional thing for you? I mean, did you think, everybody's zigging, so I'm going to zag, I'm going to go a different way?
Yeah, well, at that time, the punk thing was happening in London. And I thought, well, I'll do something similar. So I had, a suit made like in the 1950s style. I was very, very much into doo-wop stuff. I liked all that old, and rock and roll from the early 50s. Little Richard, et cetera, Fats Domino, Buddy Holly, all that kind of thing. And so I sort of thought, well, this is how I feel comfortable. So I adapted this look, I guess. And my hair was very long at one time. It's down to my waist. And
Right.
I remember being in the studio and combing my hair back all the time, pushing it behind my, and my girlfriend at the time said, well, why don't you just cut your hair instead of doing all this like this? So eventually it got shorter and shorter until it became like, to I look like Elvis. I had a DA or a DT, whatever you want to call it. I did the whole bit, and I felt comfortable in that with that style. And that's kind of how I was. And later on, as you probably know, the hair thing became a problem for Richie. He didn't like the short hair at all. But I got the job. I went back and started recording with Roger Glover and in the Chateau, and then eventually in the States in a place called Syosset on Long Island on the East Coast. And well, we went through a lot of different takes of every song, and Roger was very, very helpful to me. He just said, do it now. Here's a rough idea. Now do that the way you think you would want to sing it, So they didn't make me change the way I sang, but I didn't know how to write songs of that, that ilk at all. I had no idea. I could probably make up a nice, R&B song or pop song or something, but I wasn't used to all this sort of semi-classical, I thought, well, what the hell do I do here? So Roger helped me through the whole album, and we did about 4 takes of every song, and then like a verse and a chorus or whatever. And Richie would come in and say, I like that one best. And then we'd follow on with that particular take and make the song that was only 2 verses or 1 verse or whatever into a whole thing. And Roger would say, just, okay, Graham, here's an idea. Now take it your way, do it your way. And so that was it. That's how it went. It took a long time, but I think it was worth it. I was very proud of the final product, I was surprised how well it came out. I thought, oh, is that me?
I mean, in particular, the cover of, Since You've Been Gone. I mean, a lot of people are now saying that, that's kind of almost the definitive version. A lot of people love that version.
Yeah.
I mean, how did you guys kind of make that choice? I mean, because it feels, I mean, I remember just a few days ago, I had to tell somebody, I had to go, no, that is a cover. Like some people always associate that as the one.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Yeah, well, that yeah, because Russ Ballard, the writer, he had that out as a single back in 1970 something, I think it was. And then we had a version of a girl band called Clout, and this thing called Since You've Been Gone.
Mm.
And we, somebody played it to me one day, and I said, "You're going to do this," because it was so poppy. It was really poppy. It was jolly. Yeah.
Mm.
It wasn't like the way we did it finally, but everybody hated it and everyone wanted to not do it basically. But the manager of the band, Bruce Payne, said it's time that Rainbow had, something played on the damn radio. And he said, this song will do it. Do it, as Rainbow, but do it
Mm.
your way. The band, do it your way, the way you want it to be. So that's what happened with that. It was, it turned out pretty well. And we obviously, I still do it now with my band. That's the one that always brings the crowd in. It's amazing.
Mm.
People just think that is the original version. And it was in, Guardians of the Galaxy recently, that movie. And somebody called me up and said, "Yeah, do you know your song?" He said, "Oh fuck, yeah." And there it was. And which is kind of suddenly brought up to date, from 1970, whatever, into 2000 and whatever year that came out, 2000 and something, Guardians of the Galaxy, a
I
couple of
think
years ago, I think.
yeah, a few years
Yeah,
ago now.
yeah, 2 years, yeah. And it was surprising. It was very, wow.
Mm.
Suddenly, a lot of people knew the song. So when we did it on stage, it was even more like, oh, yeah, we know this, here in this country anyway.
Of course, you kind of touched on there with Richard Blackmore having a problem with the hair. I mean, was that the tipping point for you departing, or was there many other factors? I mean, some say, oh, this happened, some say this happened. What was kind of the thing which,
Yeah.
was the moment
Yeah.
for you where it was kind of, this is where we're going to go?
Yeah. Well, what happened was we were in Copenhagen getting ready for the next album, and there were no songs, nothing. And so we
Mm.
had a rehearsal room, and it was all set up for the band. We had a new drummer. Cozy wasn't with us anymore. That was one of the reasons it was the end of it. Cozy is a very close friend of mine, and Don. Me and Don and Cozy were very, very close. And we'd go to the rehearsal room, and there'd be probably me, Don, the new drummer, and that was it. There was no Richie Blackmore.
Mm.
Roger would come along sometimes to play a little bit of whatever, trying to make up new songs for the album, the next album. And then it was like one day it was just me and Don, and we're going,
Right.
what's happening? Where's Richie? Oh, he's gone shopping. Well, what the fuck? What are we doing here? Why are we here? So well, we're getting ready for the next album. So this song came along, another song from Russ Ballard. It's called "I Surrender," and Roger Glover said, "Well, we've got this song from Russ, and it's called "I Surrender." And he played, and I said, "Oh yeah, that's fucking great." It's in the same vein as "Since You've Been Gone" kind of thing.
Mm.
And he said, "Let's go in and do some backing vocals for it." So we went into a studio, me and Rog, and I did some backup vocals ready for the actual recording, the verses, etc. But I did like, backing vocals for the chorus, I think, something like that. And so that was done, and we had a day doing that. And so, okay, we'll come back later and finish it up. And then we went back to being sort of an empty rehearsal room again, and looking at each other saying, why are we here? What are we doing? We've got one song, and it's not even ours. It's written by Russ Ballard.
Mm.
And Don looked at me and he says, "I think I'm going to go home." "You are?" I said, "Yeah, I'm going back to London." He said, I can't hang out here. It's so boring apart from anything else." And I said, "Well, if you go home, I'll go with you, And so what happened was I I decided that I should go home. And I left, and Don actually stayed. And I should have stayed, really. But I went back, and they called me up to say, "When are you coming back?" And I said, I don't want to. I said, "It's not the same anymore. We have no Cozy. Cozy's not playing with us anymore. And we have a new drummer. And I don't feel that the band is going anywhere right now." And it
Mm.
felt like that. I really thought the band was coming to an end, to be honest with you. I thought, well, that's it. Rogers. I mean, Richie's got no interest in rehearsing. So I thought, well, I'll go home. What's the point of me hanging around? And so I came back and they asked me to come back. And I said, I don't want to. And they said, well, what about if we get another singer to sing some of the songs you don't want to sing, and we'll do some songs you want to sing, whatever that meant. I said, no, I don't think so. I don't think I want to be in a band with two singers. The competition would be too evil. But anyway, Joe internally came along and he did a great job. And he took over. He was the perfect guy, really. So he finished up the song I Surrender, and I just hung around for a bit and eventually got my own band together here in LA. It was a funny time. I wish I had stayed, but as I said, the thrill had gone, so to speak, because Cozy wasn't there. And he was always fun. We could always, laugh at shit when you're not supposed to, if you know what I mean. Oh, that's fucking stupid. You're not going to play that, are you? Yeah. Anyway, yeah, he was sometimes the leader of the band, Cozy.
Right.
He had a great, he had a lot of opinions about shit. And he was a great organizer of songs. If it went on too long, he said, "Oh no, you've got to cut that bit. Oh, no, don't do that. Don't go there." He would edit the songs and make them perfect, which he did with the Down to Earth album, So, because you know what guitar players are like, me being one of myself,
solos.
And then, but wait a minute, there's more. Oh no, please stop there. No, stop there. That'll do. That'll do. Where do I sing then? Oh, you don't sing. That's it. So anyway, that was it was my choice, and I often said I wish I'd stayed a bit longer. I was a bit too full of myself. I think. I thought, well, I've done this. Everybody knows since you've been gone, and it's gonna be okay to play within another band, but my own band. Because they'll recognize the singer, but I can start something sort of from that. So Russ Ballard gave me the seed to something else growing, sort of thing. So does that make sense?
No, I completely get it. I mean, of course, further down the line, you would end up working with Michael Schenker. Of course, we know that that's been a difficult period for you. But, despite that, you went and made a great album in Assault Attack. How did that kind of dynamic work? Because,
obviously
very different type of musician, bit harder rock than
yeah. Well, you see, at first, Cozy was playing with you. Cozy was in the band with Michael. And I went to see the band play at FM station here or something. And I was watching it, and after the show was over, Gary Barton was singing. And after the show was over, Cozy came up I was standing on the balcony, he came up and said, "What do you think of the band?" I said, "It's bloody great. The songs are fantastic. I love it." He said, "Michael's a great guitar player, Gary's bloody great, blah, 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 etc." I just thought it was fantastic. And he said to me, "Well, yeah, you like it?" Yeah. I said, "Yeah." He said, how would you feel about being in the band?" I thought, "What?" And that's exactly what happened. So Gary left and I was in, and we started rehearsing with Cozy on drums for a while. And then there was a huge argument one day in the rehearsal room, and Cozy was gone. He left the band while we were starting to make up, the Assault Attack album. And so Ted McKenna was the guy that replaced him. And Ted was more than a replacement. He was just incredible. He wasn't just a replacement. As you know, Ted was playing with Michael Schenker till the day he died recently, not that long ago. And there's another great guy gone. Fucking great drummer, great friend too. And that's kind of how it happened. This Cozy Powell got me into that band. And so we started making up songs with Ted playing drums, and recorded in France and in Germany, the album. And it turned out pretty well, I think. Martin Birch was our producer, and another guy who's gone. Keep losing people. The world is strange, and I don't know anybody anymore. They've all gone. Where are they gone to? Hey, I've lost a lot of friends over the past few years. It's incredible. You know, you realize something. You think about your own mortality, and I'm going, oh crap, how old am I now? Jesus Christ! And people are dying in their 50s and 60s. I'm going, geez, I'm older than them. What the hell's going on? You know, but yes, well, that's kind of it. That's how that happened. And Michael was very pleased, and he said to me one day, while I'm sitting in rehearsal, and he said, "Okay, Graham, can you write some words to this song?" I was kind of la along with all the tracks they were playing. He said, "We'll start with this one first." And it was a song that became it was called Desert Song, and I had no idea what I was going to write about. And I was sitting on the side of the rehearsal room, and I just thought, okay, what do heavy metal bands write about normally? Sort of mystical, but not quite, you know. So I made it up about, you know, sailing ships across the desert, fading in the Arabian sun, you know, sort of like poetic. Oh, ships across the desert. What's that? It's a camels. They called the ship of the desert. I had to explain what it's all about to Michael. And he said, what is this dusty the heat of a dusky lady? What is a dusky lady? I said, what do you mean dark? You know, dark skinned, and you know, it's kind of a sensual, etc. looking. And well, anyway, that's how it started. And then I went to where did I go to? Yeah, I went to stay at Roger Glover's house. I started writing all the other song lyrics. You know, as we got the melodies together, I spent a lot of time just sitting outside Roger's house and writing words to whatever came up next. You know, it was quite a process, and I was very excited about having to write all the words and write all the melodies instead of relying on somebody else telling me how to go, where to put notes and how to sing it. You know, yeah.
You know, of course, you know, you had a bit of a kind of a full circle thing, reuniting him with him years later, you know, guesting on the album Resurrection. You know, I can imagine that that's kind of nice to be able to go, you know what, now I can kind of put like a good ending on this.
Yeah.
Like we can have this full circle. I mean, did you feel, you know, was you surprised that you got the offer? Was it a shock to you, or did you think, yeah?
Yeah, well, because I left the band. I fucked up on the first gig we did with Michael, the live gig in Sheffield. I messed up royally. There's a whole story about it, I know, but I won't bother with that. But you know, when we did this, the recent stuff, you know, a few years ago, I looked across and we sang. What was I singing? Oh, the Desert Song, I think, the song I'm talking about. And I looked across to Michael and I said, "Okay." And he smiled back. He said, "Yep." I'm back. You know, I wasn't a drunken idiot like I was the day that I was fired from the Michael Schenker band in Sheffield. You know, and I said to him, I actually did it, and every night was great. We had a fantastic time with, you know, with Ted playing drums and with Robin McCauley, and with you know, it was fantastic, really good. I enjoyed it very much doing that. You know, all the singers that were in the Michael Schenker band taking it in turns to do their own little bit, you know. So, and of course, Gary was there, and poor Gary, his voice had kind of gone, but you know, we all backed each other up. So we sang with Gary and Robin, doing harmony with them and stuff. But Gary didn't care; he didn't give a shit. He just went on. He just, you know, he just went, nah, fuck it, you know. He was always a happy guy. You know, and we know that something was driving him that might be some kind of liquid, and it was something that I remember very well. But you know, it's something I don't do now. I'm glad to say, and it's difficult to give, you know, your what became basically part of your personality, give that up, and suddenly realize who you are and what your voice is and how you really feel about the world, and see it with clear eyes instead of, hey, you know, everything isn't happy all the time, you know, or whatever, or just, you know, careless. And Gary is like that, but he's fantastic. He does a great job, and I love him. It's really a really nice guy, and Robin and I get on very well. And Robin, I like his voice. Robin is different, you know. You can always spot him. He's got a, you know, that very trebly voice he has. He's great. So anyway, it's Michael and I are very happy that we're back together again. Well, we were. I haven't done anything recently with him, but
Mm,
I'm sure if you asked me again, I'd be there. Yeah, because I love
mm,
him. I love his playing. I love him as a guy. He's fantastic.
mm. Of course, you touched on a bit earlier there with Yngwie Malmsteen,
Yeah.
with Alcatraz. I mean, obviously, he was a young guy when you formed the band there. I mean,
Hmm.
did you feel that there was something extraordinary with him? Because obviously he's gone on to be this Goliath of a
Yeah.
guitarist.
Yeah.
Was there something
Yeah.
special immediately?
Oh, fuck yeah. I mean, what happened yeah, you see, I heard about this fantastic guitar player. Well, one of the band was talking to somebody in a store or something, and he said, well, I hear that you're looking for a guitar player for your
Mm,
band, yeah, which became Alcatraz. And he said, yeah. I said, well, I've got a guy you should talk to. So this guy gave one of our band members Yngwie's telephone number, and we got in touch with him, and he thought it was a joke. He said, "No, with Graham? No, no, no." He thought somebody was playing a game with him. But anyway, we had a rehearsal room rented, and we told him to turn up at whatever time it was one afternoon, and he was in the car with all of his friends, and he looked out the car and went, "Oh, fucking hell!" It was true. It was Graham. It was Graham from Rainbow. You know, and he was like overcome. He was like, "Oh my god!" Anyway, we'd ask him. I said to the band, "Let's ask him to do something that isn't like Rainbow. Let's ask
mm,
him to do what was the song? Let me think. Oh, it's a song called SOS, which is another Rascal song, which I did on an album, which isn't all that.
mm.
Ask him to play that. Let's see how he does that. And he played it so well; it was incredible. And I said, okay. And he said, well, let's do some Rainbow stuff now. And when he started playing Rainbow stuff, it was like, what the fuck? This guy is incredible. This man, this young boy, this
Mm.
19-year-old is just amazing. And I remember when we went on the road, we were opening up for Ted Nugent, and Ted Nugent came in after we finished our show, and he came and said, "Fucking fantastic show, guys." And he looked over at Yngwie and said, "Don't get rid of this guy,"
Mm.
because Yngwie was an integral part of the fucking band. He carried that band. He really did. Him and the drummer, I will say. Oh, and of course me. But I mean, but he was the most important person in the band, and we were very lucky to have him. And I knew that one day he would go and do something by himself. That's the way he was looking. This was a stepping stone for him to go to something better or whatever. Have his own band. So that's
Mm.
what happened.
You're not doing bad for guitarists here. I mean, I was looking through your history, and I'm just like, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, working with Steve Vai, I mean, was there, obviously, there's everybody has a process. Was he dramatically different from,
Yeah.
previous people you've worked with, or did he have a kind of a process?
Yeah, I mean, he was so different to everybody,
Mm,
because he come from Frank Zappa's band, and he
mm,
had a different idea about songs. And when I remember the very first night we played live somewhere, and he had his manager with him, and it was our first gig with him playing guitar for us. And he looked at me, and he was terrified. He was absolutely terrified. And she was with him saying, it's okay, Steve. You're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. And he said, I'm worried. He said, I don't play like Yngwie. And then
mm,
I said to him, no, you play like Steve Vai. You know, that's who you are. And he sort of said, thank you, sort of thing. And he went out there and he played his bum off. He played his ass off. He really did. Played all
mm,
the Yngwie licks and whatever. But he had when we started to write songs for the album that we did together, he and me and the rest of the band, um, he thought pretty much like I do. He just, didn't want to copy any other band, going the formula. He was
mm,
very much, he said, I always say the same thing. Instead of going straight ahead in the song, we take a left turn or a right turn or go somewhere down the middle, and something different would happen in each song. And I was like, oh, yeah, let's. I can go to a different melody here. You're actually changing key here, and you're going to somewhere that doesn't lead into a fucking guitar solo. I mean, eventually, of course, eventually there will be a guitar solo, but it was um, always very much part of the vocal line. Sometimes you would take, sort of shadow a vocal line and then turn it into a thing, which he was complimentary towards what I was singing or whatever, And he was just perfect. I loved working with him. And when he got another job, which was a good paying job, I was very disappointed, But money is, it's all about money in the end, and he got a very good job that was paying well. Because when we did a video together, it was a song called God Bless Video. And he was spotted by people, and he was in a movie, Crossroads, and then he was taken by, I think it was David Lee Roth first, I'm not sure, or was it Whitesnake? One or the other. And anyway, he got offered a good job, and it's okay. But he didn't tell me. The band told me. He said, I can't tell Graham. I can't tell Graham because I care about him. He cared about me too much, because he knew it would hurt me because we got on so well writing tunes. To me, he was the perfect songwriter. He really was for the way I thought anyway. I mean, not necessarily a great songwriter like me ever, but we just thought the same way.
Chemistry is there.
The chemistry, exactly. And I think we made a great album with him playing guitar. I really do. That's my favorite album about the drums. It really is.
Yeah. Of course, we mentioned here that, you've worked with so many amazing artists. I mean, over the years, has it kind of changed the way that you look at approaching making a song or making an album?
No. With Conrad Passanado being our guitar player, he's staying with us right now. We're starting to record. I've got a session to do with him, but we're going to start recording for our next album, the Graham Bonnet Band album. And he and I get on very well. He's a bit like me. He's very much a Steve Vai, sort of inventive, kind of weird stuff he thinks of, and I do too. And I say, we're going to a waltz here. And one of the songs we did recently was in 3/4 time. How can that be heavy? 3/4 time, what? That's a waltz. You can dance to it. But he thinks the same way. Use different time signatures for so-called hard rock or whatever you want to damn well call it. I don't know what is heavy metal or hard rock or what anymore. I can't label anything. It's
the
just
lines
music
have
to me.
Blurred for sure.
Hey,
the lines have just got blurred over the years for sure.
Yeah. I know. It's just music. It's the same notes, it's the same chords, but just played in a different area, in a different pattern. It's all the same note. That's it. No, that's not a sharp. That's a flat. And then I'm amazed at how many songs can come out of those few notes we have to choose. It's so weird. It's like Rubik's Cube. And it's like, no, I'll go with that. It's weird. I was thinking about it the other day, like, how the hell did we come up with that melody when there's only, 8 notes or something? And, 16, isn't it, I guess, really. But it's just weird how you can come up with every day you can come up with a new chord. If you play your guitar, you say, what's that? I don't know what it is, but it sounds fucking great, And I knew that Steve, he's played that way, He did all that tapping thing that I told my mum and dad about. I said, you've got to see this guy play. And I said, he plays the guitar like a piano. I said, it's amazing. And he said, on one song, it sounds like bagpipe. I said, it's incredible. I used to bring, my mum and dad used to come and stay with us here, and I would always bring like a rough tape home of the song just recorded or something. And I said, listen to this. And they were just amazed at how he played. They were just, that's amazing. He said, that's a guitar. Yeah, that's a guitar. You've got to see him do it, though. I said, right. So, again, because of that movie, Crossroads, he was suddenly wanted by everybody. So I knew that was going to happen. It was too good for the fucking band. Well, whatever.
Of course, you briefly touched on it there, but looking forward, do you have kind of plans? I mean, you spoke about the doing a bit of recording there. I mean, are you looking at releasing another album soon or soonish?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we've had three albums out, the Graham Bonnet band, and they've
Yeah.
all charted, and we've done great actually. The songs have turned out really well, and so we're on our fourth. We'll be doing our fourth album.
Right.
We're still going out and playing. We're going on tour in about 2 weeks, I think it is.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we're going all over the freaking place, all over the world. But it's mainly not so much here in the States. It's mainly Europe, England,
Hmm.
etc. Because over here it's really difficult to find the right kind of place to play because it's the music we play is no longer fashionable. You know what I mean?
Right.
But we're still doing it. I'm still doing it. Still singing the same. I'm glad to say, and I'm always asked, like, how come you sound like you did, 30 years ago or whatever?
Mm.
And I said, I don't know. I've just been very lucky. I haven't fucked my voice up, because a lot of guys have.
Yeah,
And
yeah. I mean, is there a process? Is there like a way that you're preserving it, or is it just luck?
partially luck, I think, and big lungs. I got a lot of air, and also not fucking your voice up. Not doing, or
Mm.
not doing all that falsetto stuff, which ruins your voice. Falsetto is one of the worst things you can do. But some people are really good at it, and I'm not. I try not to do that. If I go for a high note, I want it to be, from the chest, from the throat. I want it to be big and strong. So I'm not very good at falsetto at all. I leave that to Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons, or Ian Gillan's great at it, and Rob Halford. They do that so perfectly, but I just can't. It's not.
Mm.
I can't do it, and so I don't. Once in a while, well, I did just like, that's falsetto, right? You know what I mean? You can do, all that kind of thing, but it doesn't do your throat any good. So
Mm.
I tried. I know that when I go out now, I know where to breathe. Whereas before, a lot of the times I never really spotted what I was doing when we recorded the song. How did I do that? How did I do that? Now I listen to the songs, I know where I breathe and where the voice came from. It came from here, came from the head, from the
Mm.
chest, from the stomach, from the butt, And I listen to that. Now I know that when I'm going for something high and whatever and strong, I know to take a really deep breath and really let it go. And it works. I mean, people are, I'm not showing off here, but people are just saying what I just said. How the hell are you singing the same way as you did when you were 30? I said, I'd be very lucky and I'm very, very careful about my voice. Very careful. I don't
Mm.
drink. I don't smoke, So that's something that I did drink. I used to drink like a freaking fish. That doesn't do you any good. Um, when you think you're doing great, then you listen to a recording back after you've been shit faced on stage. Oh, fucking no. Don't do
Mm.
that, man. Don't do that. So I'm just very careful. And as I said, I've got a rather large capacity of lungs here. Thank you, Granddad. My granddad had the same body, had a huge chest and a very narrow waist, like a greyhound. So my body is shaped like a greyhound. You know, he did. He was a farmer, my granddad. Nice to see him with his shirt off, and he had just big, big old lungs. And I've sort of I have what my granddad had. The same kind of shaped body and very long arms for some reason. But I'm very careful. I have to be, and coffee is another bad thing. Don't drink coffee. That will fuck your voice up too if you have too much of it.
Mm.
So no booze, no coffee, no cigarettes. Try to sleep as much as you can, and just breathe properly. Don't just falsetto it all the time. Think about
Mm.
the real voice, and that's what I try to do. Of
Mm.
course, sometimes it doesn't work if I'm feeling crappy. It doesn't always work if you're feeling a bit sick. But I do the best I can if I've got a cold.
Question I always like to finish on, ask every guest.
Yeah,
It's a bit of a hypothetical one. If you could go and work with one musician from the past and one from the present who you haven't got to work with before, who would it
yeah.
be? Is there anybody that kind of, if you could go back and pull somebody or somebody you've
Uh,
yet to work with? I mean, I know that you've got kind of a plethora of amazing artists that you've been with, but
yeah.
I'm sure there's a few that you haven't.
Well, I would say Brian Wilson. You know, he's one of my. I love the Beach Boys,
Mm.
not the surf music, but the later, Pet Sounds album
Yeah, yeah.
is just amazing. I mean, I love their later albums. I don't go for the surfy stuff so much, but that was fashionable at the time. But I think he's an incredible musician. I mean, he's really incredible. And I've never met him, but I've got all the albums. I've never met the guy. I've seen the shows he does, recently, probably about 20 years ago, I saw him play on stage in Australia, and it was
Mm.
just incredible. I came out of there goosebumps. I was like, what have I just seen? Seen amazing harmony on stage and these amazing songs that are silly. Some of them are, vegetables. There's a song called Vegetable. I'm
Mm.
going to dig round my vegetables. I'm going. And it's like this silly song, but then this harmony, all this stuff comes in, and voice arrangements. It's just anyway. He's one of my heroes, and somebody now. I cannot think of one person, which is terrible. I don't listen to music. I don't
No?
listen to music. I don't watch the award shows. I don't know who's current. I never have. I've never really sort of been somebody who follows the music business that closely, except when I was a
Mm.
kid. Well, when I was a kid, when I was about 19, I had my own beginnings in the music business. But after that, I found, well, really in Rainbow, they never listened to anything either. It would be
No.
completely, let's watch Monty Python, not let's listen
Mm.
to the latest album of whomever. I seem to remember the last album I actually heard on the bus was, oh crap, the Sultans of Swing. Um,
Oh God, Dire
yeah,
Straits.
yeah, Dire Straits. And Roger had the album. Roger played it on the bus, and Cozy was still in the band at that time. Uh, and Roger said, "This is my favorite music right now." And Cozy said, "I'm so happy for you, Roger." Sarcastic bastard. But honestly, if you mention somebody's name or a
Mm.
band or whatever right now, I go, "Who's that?"
Mm.
Because my guitar player, being only 40 something years old, he knows every fucking musician in the world. Every guitar player here in LA, every drummer, blah 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 blah. But I've never really followed who's doing what, you know.
Mm.
And when, as I said, when I was out with Rainbow, other bands didn't matter. We were the band, and
Mm.
that's it. That was it. We were the band, and everybody felt the same way. There was no one that could touch us after Since You've Been Gone, for instance.
Yeah.
It's like we were it. So I never really thought, well, who's in this band? Who's in that? But now, of course, I know, Bruce Dickinson and, Rob and all
Mm.
those guys that are of that ilk. And I've seen Bruce recently. Bruce actually might be singing on this new album with me,
Wow.
Bruce Dickinson. So, because I went to see him, I've seen him a few times, a couple of times. And, it's been great. God, I wish I could give you a name of somebody.
Yeah,
But
there's no pressure. I mean, I imagine having not kind of I mean, I would a lot of people, if they're in rock music or something like that, they'll listen to, loads of different rock artists.
yeah,
And I imagine that, after a while, I mean, I've seen it with other bands. After a while, they start to sound like each other.
yeah,
So I imagine if you're not listening to any of that, when you
yeah,
come, make a record or something, it's going to sound
exactly,
like you, isn't it? It's going to sound
exactly,
original. There's not, even a subconscious
exactly.
kind of influence.
Yeah, that's what I said to I said to well, he says the same thing actually. Our guitar player Conrad, he says the
Mm.
same thing. I said, yeah, don't listen to anything. Don't try to listen. He listens to all kinds of shit. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? And it's horrible to me. It's like, like nails on a chalkboard. I'm going, what is that? He said, well, it's quite a good song. It's fucking horrible. I said,
Mm.
but it's like me. He's like Steve Vai, as I said. He thinks about, so as I said, he wrote a part. It's in 3/4, a 3/4 song for a heavy rock album. So you've got to listen to our albums. The Graham Bonnet Show, the Graham Bonnet Band. We have three albums out, and they've all done very well, and people kind of know the songs and everything. But especially when we play in Japan, which is most every year. And I look down at the audience, and they're singing the verses to songs. I'm like, bloody hell! Because normally people sing choruses, but I looked down when we were in Japan last time, a couple of years ago, and they're singing the words to the verses. And they're Japanese. Good grief! But it's good that people actually listen to what the words I write. So that's cool. Very cool.
I mean, with the Japanese thing, I was speaking with a chap called Marty Friedman. He was in a band called Megadeth. So he lives out in Japan, and he was speaking about how it's different. The audiences love to participate much more in Japan.
Yeah,
it's that, as you mentioned there, that kind of they'll memorize the whole song.
Yeah, in English.
It's quite in English. I mean, it's second language.
It's not even their freaking language, for Christ's sake.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Yeah,
I mean, the first time. Yeah, I went to Japan with Rainbow. It was like fucking Beatles time. People were like, couldn't walk down the street. It was incredible. Cozy said to me, he said, "You wait till we go to Japan." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, you'll see."
Something else, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's still kind of the same. We go into the lobby of a hotel, and suddenly someone will come from, like, where do you come from? From behind a plant or something. And we still sign autographs and signing albums and stuff, and it's amazing. They have a collection of albums that some of them I've never even seen before. Compilation albums, whatever it may be, and they're always there. And I've known people in Japan for fucking forever. So now they're bringing their kids along and their grandkids. I got their grandkids. Because I'm a granddad, of course, but I'm still Graham. I'm still that young person inside. Might not be on the outside so much, but it's they hear when I sing that I still have the energy, and it's never gone away. And I'm very, very lucky. As I said, I look after it as much as I can.
Well, thank you so much for joining me, Graham. I mean, it's been really interesting speaking with you. And of course, for those that want to go and see you live, I'll put the link in the description below to catch you on tour. I know that's out in a few weeks, if they can grab tickets.
Yeah.
And obviously you have this album potentially on the way, maybe with Bruce Dickinson, maybe.
Oh, no, he's a volunteer to do something.
Wow.
Because when I was talking to him last, I said, "You're fucking great tonight, man." He would. I remember one of the guys that was working with him that night. One of the I don't know if it was a roadie or something or whatever. He said he came out to talk to me before Bruce started the show. He said to me, he said, "Oh, Bruce," he said, "Do you know that Graham's here? Graham Bonnet's here." That was Bruce saying that. I'm going,
wow.
He loves me. So he's mentioned in his book as well. It's kind of funny because he likes the way I write words and whatever. And so he jumped at the idea of us doing a song together. So
I know he's a big Rainbow guy. He's a big Rainbow fan.
Oh yeah. So that's Bruce, and I'm very glad to know him because I love him. Got a great voice, a great fucking band. Oh my God, what a band! Yeah, they're so perfect. They're just they don't have to do anything. They know all the moves, and they've been going for so fucking long. There's no mistakes from them. Well, I don't think so.
Not the
those giants coming out on stage and whatever else is. It's like I don't know. It's like carnival or something. It's just incredible the show they put on.
It's become like theatre.
It's theatre.
It feels like a theatre show at this point.
It's exactly. I couldn't believe it. Because we saw him at where was it? The Forum, and it was fucking hell, what the hell's going on here? I looked at Bethany, my girlfriend. She's our bass player, and I looked at her and went, "What the fuck is it?" It's amazing. So I went back, after the show, obviously, and I was just blown away. I was just blown away by the whole thing. incredible guys, incredible band, incredible singer, very, very nice person, very
Mm.
nice. Oh, he always has been. Known him for a long time.
Mm. Well, we'll certainly be keeping an eye out for that then. And I'm sure, as I say, people will be able to grab tickets of your upcoming tour via the link in the description below. And thank you so much for joining me, Graham. It's been
All right.
such a
Sorry.
pleasure.